catching the pledge to the flag. I'll ask Commissioner Ashbrook to lead the pledge and Jim Anderson to pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day, for this opportunity to come here and do the work of our community. We ask that you give us wisdom and guidance, and that you look over each one of us over the holiday season approaching us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, we got the air on. I'm already getting hot.
It's on heat.
Yeah, we got to change up.
But please maybe turn it off altogether. But I'll call the November 19th regular meeting of the City Commission to order. Welcome everyone, glad you're here. And the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is the minutes of our 11/5/19 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Ashbrook to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoffman. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. Okay, long-term recovery update. Young lady, come up please and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi.
We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having us here. My name is Nancy Stewart. I'm the new Executive Director for the Citizens of Gulf County Long-Term Recovery Team. We're here and have been in place as an all-volunteer board from January of 2019. Our primary mission is to help those who have no other way to advance their own recovery after the hurricane. So just wanted to give you a few updates, specifically things that might relate to the city, although we are responsible and working with individuals countywide. So I just stepped into the position as Executive Director. Those funds were granted to us through Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. We also had a grant that is funding a construction coordinator position. My colleague Eddie Fields has taken that position on, and we both started formally November 1st. Some of the things related to the city that I'd like to update you on: we were recently awarded a grant through the Jesse Ball DuPont Foundation through the Port St. Joe Capacity Building Advised Fund. That grant supports the purchase, installation, and fit up in utilities for our construction materials and household good warehouse. It is a temporary structure, steel hurricane with canvas top that can be secured and is weatherproof. We've purchased that, or are in the process of purchasing that, from Big Top, and we've leased space from the Port Authority. That land is going to be cleared as of tomorrow, and we are expecting installation to happen by December 1st. So that was a big deal, because that allows us to then get large quantities of building materials, supplies, and household goods delivered all at once from foundations like Home Depot and Lowe's. So that was a good step in the right direction. The other thing that you all should be aware of is the disaster case management agency that was selected by Volunteer Florida and will be paid through federal grants that are coming down through the states. That agency has been selected for our area. It's St. Vincent de Paul. They're going to be in the area actually tomorrow, meeting with us at our community meeting. And we'll have at least 3 to 4 case managers and supervisors in our area, which will be good, and they'll be working in close collaboration with our team. One of the things that I'll put out there is they are looking for office space in the community, because they want to primarily operate out of Gulf County, which will be of a benefit to us. So if you all hear of any agencies, churches, or other opportunities for some private office space for about 2 to 4 individuals, just let me know. We are also working on 2 initiatives that we hope to have kicked off by the end of the year. Samaritan's Purse has come to us and asked that we submit a grant through our long-term recovery team to actually do 3 to 5 complete rebuilds of homes in the community. So through our case management committee, they'll be making selections based on prioritization and need. We have a scoring system in place that the board has approved. So we hope to have that grant written and submitted by the end of the year. We don't know how many of the homes will be in the city itself, but I would imagine that there might be some individuals that would be impacted by that, so we will keep you informed. We're also going to be selecting several folks to do roof replacements. We have gotten several grants for materials and services to replace roofs, and so we want to make those first selections of 2 to 3 homes to replace roofs, calling it through the Blue Tarp Project. Get those blue tarps off those homes. So right now we're in the process of really doing a countywide assessment, call back and get a complete clean list of the individuals that are still needing the help with the roof repairs. The only other thing I want to mention is we're actually hosting, in collaboration with the Methodist Caring Ministry, a community Thanksgiving lunch. The lunch is free. We have donations and cooks that have contributed up to 250 meals. So we want to get the word out to everybody that if they do want to come and either pick up a meal or sit down and eat in fellowship, it's going to be held at the United Methodist Church there in Port St. Joe, 11:30 to 1:30 on Thanksgiving. So, any questions?
Anyone? Anyone in the audience?
Great work.
It sure is, man.
All right.
Thank you for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you, and Eddie, Loretta Costin, and Vicki Abrams, and everybody concerned. We know what hard work you're doing, and we appreciate you getting it coordinated.
Well, you're welcome, and we feel like we're on the cusp of actually getting some, boots on the ground.
Sounds like it.
Changes happening.
Yeah.
So, thanks, and I'll plan to come back on a monthly basis if that's
That's
agreeable
perfect.
to y'all.
We'd love to have you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it. Good news. Okay, PSJRA, Dave, is anything new going on with that we need to talk about?
The only thing I'd like to ask, Mayor, is that we plan on a workshop for the future of the downtown redevelopment agency, as we're going to have hardly any TIF funds to use for staffing. We kind of need to come up with a plan moving forward, and I'd like to do that in a workshop format. I looked at our December schedule, and it looks pretty tight, but maybe early January. Is there a date that works for everybody? Maybe the second Tuesday in January?
In January?
That's not on here.
Not on there, but I think it's fine with me.
Want to tentatively set it for noon?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that tentatively and go from there. Yeah, sounds good.
That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you today is a proposed special master agreement for special master services related to code enforcement proceedings. As you will remember, Mr. Matchison was selected at our last meeting. I've drafted a contract which is substantially similar to previous contracts the city has used of prior providers. In this contract, 2 things that I'd like to point out would be it's a 2-year contract, and it's for $150 an hour. The previous provider was at a rate of $125 an hour. Mr. Matchison has requested $150 an hour. With that said, if the commission is inclined to accept this agreement, I would suggest that the commission make it contingent upon Mr. Matchison showing that he's in good standing with the Florida Bar, which we know he's in good standing, but his license was in abatement, essentially. When I spoke to Mr. Matchison, he said that should come shortly. I just hadn't had confirmation yet. And the second thing is I proposed it for December after speaking, begin date being December after speaking with Mr. Anderson. That seemed to be the most efficient way to begin December 1 for a 2-year contract period.
Okay. Any questions on the special master?
I have one
Comments?
one for staff, Mayor, if I may. Is this funded through the legal services part of our budget, or is this additional request for funds going to cause any issues?
I think you're going to see it two different ways. I think depending on what we have, we're trying to limit the expenses as much as we can by regular code enforcement. Numerous letters have been out the last couple of weeks, but you will have some that's going to go to special master. What the plan is at this point, we have met with Mr. Burkett and Mr. Mashton. Ones that we feel that we need to move forward with the special master, we're going to bring before the board and say, hey, these are ones that we've not been able to solve. We need to go move forward on those. So you'll be aware of those before we hold the special master hearing. But the short and skinny of it is this could be an extra expense depending on what we get into and how much debt we do. Because first off, you got the special master that's going to decide the hearing. And then from there, when you get your ruling down, there could be some additional expense for the city depending on how to abate the problem.
But it'll be on a task order. It won't be just autopilot. We're going to start accruing all these debts.
Yes, sir. Because Mr. Burke is going to do most of the legwork for you as far as setting up the hearings, doing most of the paperwork. We had a discussion about that. So the expense will be for preparation of the actual hearing and the hearing itself on there. So we'll be getting you a list on those. But
Okay.
Mike, you might be able to elaborate. I think it's going to be twofold, probably, if I had to guess.
No, I would agree. We do budget for those expenses. We just don't know how many hours a special master is going to put in because of all of those variables Jim just explained, but we do have funds budgeted. I don't think it'll be a significant issue.
That's all I had, Mayor.
So is there a motion to accept the contract as presented?
Yeah, motion to accept based on the contingency that was spoke on beginning December 1.
Okay. Yes. There's a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Langston. Any further discussion, any discussion from the audience on the special master? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 4-0. Okay, we're under old business, Mr. Anderson. If you don't have anything else, Adam, you okay?
Yes, sir, nothing further. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mayor. First item, government complex grant. I'll continue to look at our different options on there. As we speak, SERPRO is actually going through the old police department to see what it would take to get a certificate for the mold evaluation. So they're looking at that to see what our options are on the cost on that. And I believe the mayor actually has a meeting tomorrow with St. Joe Company. I don't know if you want to
I
elaborate on that.
do. George Gonzalez reached out to me with a text this morning. I talked to him a month ago about some property, of what they had available, and he said he'd try to come up with something. And true to form, he texted me this morning, said he'll be in town tomorrow, wants to meet at 3:30. So I hope that'll be good news for us.
We're continuing to work it. We're trying to look at all of our options and keep the board posted on what we find out. The next item we have is a reference to Capital City Bank lease. We still have not got a final decision from Capital City Bank on there. The last information I had was that they were still considering whether they were going to remodel, build a new building, what they were going to do. So for the board, their lease should be, their current lease, will it be expiring this month? That is a reference to them utilizing the park for the temporary building, but I don't have any further information at this point.
I talked to them this morning, and it does sound like they're just about full speed ahead with building a new bank building on their property that they have got a binder on. And what period of time that will take, I don't know, but that it sounded like that's 90% done deal. So they're moving forward with their property. I think Avenue A and Highway 98.
Do we have I know we voted on an amount of payment starting December 1. Do we have an agreement worked up for that period of time?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it's voted on. I guess it should be done. I mean, we got to produce some kind of lease with them based on our motion from the previous meeting, I assume.
Yeah, I think it would probably be wise and prudent to have the city attorney work up a lease beginning December 1.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I've drafted a draft of the lease. To this point, Capital City has seemed not inclined to want to sign it. So it takes two parties, two to dance. So from my perspective, from a legal perspective, either they can sign the lease at the amount that was approved by the commission, or they'll need to vacate at the end of the expiration of their lease or their license agreement term.
And that's,
Unless I'm
best we
directed
tell,
otherwise.
11 days.
Okay, I just didn't want us to assume that we had some kind of agreement. I wasn't aware that we actually had that presented, so
I
that's
have
good.
a draft. I didn't plug in some of the details because I was waiting for those to be negotiated, but I have the overall format done. All I need to know is dates, amounts, and if we've got two parties that want to tango. And right now it appears that the city's made an offer, and from what I know, and Mr. Anderson or the commission can correct me, but what I know is Capital City has not indicated they want to sign a lease or any sort of agreement at the rate that's being proposed.
No.
Well, Jim, can you reach out to them once again and ask them, basically tell them that that's what the options are. So, anyway, okay. Any questions on the Cap City Bank?
I just want to say that, how long did that lease carry for Jim? Besides, if when we voted on it to not extend it for $2,000, what if it was going to continue to be the $2,000? How long would that lease last? Would it go into? I mean, how long was that lease agreement?
Yes, sir. Currently, what you had, you initially had a 6-month agreement with them to allow the temporary building on the city park. We extended it 6 more months, which would be expiring this month. If I remember correctly, what we did was the board had actually voted to extend an offer of $3,000 for either 12 or 15. I want to say it was 15 months. 15 months at $3,000 a month, and then I think it was also brought back up to reduce it back down, but I think it fell for 3 to 2, if I remember correctly.
So did we have that money budgeted for in our budget?
Yes, we did budget that revenue stream. We didn't budget the full 12 months. I only budgeted, I think it was 10 months, because we weren't sure of what was going to shake out. But we did budget 10 months of that $30,000, yes.
And see, the only thing that concerns me is that we have this money budgeted, and we're not going to get anything. You know, that's the only thing that concerns me. I think that, you know, it's over, and we've already voted in the past. I just wanted to, I just don't understand why we didn't consider that before we made the decision that we won't have this money available for us in the budget.
That's a good point.
You know,
Yeah, we put it in the budget before we had a signed agreement.
yeah.
So that may be something we've got to look at down the road if they don't come to the table with a signature. Any other questions on the Capital City Bank lease? Okay, next item, Jim.
Yes, sir. RFQ 2019-03 Electrical Service Continuing Services Contract. Yes, it did close on Friday. We did open it up. At this point, staff is asking that you give us time to look at it. We're also going to be interviewing next week for the electrician position. So we're trying to look at all our different options on it. So at this point, we're not ready to make a recommendation to you.
Do you need a motion to table that since it's an RFQ or no?
If you would like. It's not totally necessary because we're not going to act on it, but that's up to you. What do you want?
You did get some response from it.
Yes, sir. We got one response back.
Yeah, go ahead, that'll be fine.
I'll make a motion to table RFQ 2019-03.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
I said.
Second, Mr. Langston. Any questions or discussions about this contract? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next.
The next item we have is a reference to Robert's Rules of Order. Mayor Brazette want to continue the conversation tonight on it?
Yes, we definitely need to craft an order of doing business here, where voting on motions, speakers, and so on and so forth. Robert's Rules of Order is very, very complex. I'm working with our attorney on setting up some kind of design that we can use to run our meeting that would not indicate that we're 100% Robert's Rules of Order, some kind of hybrid of that. So we'll be working on that in the future, and hope we get something done fairly quickly. Any questions on that? Okay. New business.
Planning board membership. Currently, we have 3 members of your planning board that's up for renewal of term, or if you would rather to look at other options on there. They are set up for 3-year terms. You have 3 if you turn over to pages 8 and 9. You have 3 volunteers that have done a very good job for the city over the last couple of years and are willing to serve another term if it's the wishes of the board.
What's the pleasure of the board on this?
Motion to extend for another term before they change their mind.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hoffman to extend, second by Commissioner Ashbrook. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, if you'll notify them, Ms. Charlotte, that we appreciate their service. Next item.
Yes, sir. Next item we have is the Washington Gym lighting. Been working with Commissioner Langston to look at hurricane damage to the facility. What we have before you today is an upgrade to LED lighting. This would actually replace the lighting in the gym, and it also should help out with our power bill. So we think this will be a tremendous asset to the Washington Gym.
Commissioner Langston, you have any comments on that?
Yes, me, Jim, and myself, and Mike, we've been talking about several things that needs to be done within the Washington Gym, and we have to prioritize. So we felt that the lighting was most important right now because of the things that's going on in the gym when we have someone they want to rent it or whatever. So we're starting with that. And then I also talked to him about the windows. So it's coming together slowly but surely, but I think that the lighting was the most important right now, and Jim jumped on it. So here we are with this estimate in front of us, and I think LED lighting, you know, it's going to be bright. I mean, and then you don't have to worry about changing them as much. So I think this is a great start right now.
I agree with you. Now, the lighting, are they increasing, decreasing, or putting the same amount of number of fixtures in there?
My understanding it'll be replacement in the same locations, but the LED lighting should be a lot brighter.
Correct.
Not require nearly as much wattage either, so hopefully we'll see a difference in our power bill.
Absolutely. Yep.
Jim, one of the things I noticed too, those metal halide fixtures, when those bulbs go out, they're not cheap either. So this is going to be a lot cheaper for replacement.
Just getting to them is not fun.
No.
So we've got a estimate in front of us. It's under the bid threshold for the city manager, but we do need a motion to accept this contract from or estimate from Current Solutions for $8,800.
So
Okay. Commissioner Langston will make the motion. Commissioner Ashbrook's going to second it. Any discussion from the commission? Any discussion from the floor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion can pass 4-0.
One thing I'll advise the board too, while we're working through hurricane damage, we got a report this morning that there was a pipe that did bust over in the museum. So the guys are there today trying to work on extracting the water and cleaning up after a busted pipe in the museum. So we fixed one problem and another one shows up, but we'll get it fixed. Mr. Grantlin is not here tonight today with us, so if you would like, Mayor, I can go on with the stump grinder.
Please.
We're looking at trying to figure out, we have hundreds of stumps in our parks that need to be addressed, but it looks like we may have another option. We're going to ask you tonight to table this as well, because the workforce board may have an option to be able to provide equipment and workers as a pilot project to actually take care of these. So I would ask to table this, and hopefully this may be an expense we don't have to bear here to see. We'll work with them, see if we can get it done.
That'll be good, because the proposal was to buy a stump grinder for our Bobcat, I guess, which would have been around $12,000. So it would be a wonderful savings for us if that'll work out. So keep us posted.
Yeah, we will. Kind of an update too, so you know, on other projects going on. Right now, we have the bridge foundations going back to the walking path. We're hoping to get that poured this week to follow back up with the bridge and getting the path put back together. So that's coming soon. Also too, the fence should be is coming down Wednesday around the tennis court to be replaced there. So we need to be thinking about what we want to do for the use in the next couple of weeks, be thinking of what's the best use of that facility. Mike is working on prices to come back and resurface that. So we need to be thinking about that. Also too, we opened...
Yeah, while we're on that, let's slow down just a minute. Of course, we're going to replace the fence around there and trying to get prices on resurfacing, and that would include restriping. And the question is, the best use of that piece of property down there appears right now, looks like 90% pickleball and 10% tennis, or maybe more than that toward the pickleball. So I'd like to see what the commission thinks about just restriping it for pickleball.
I spoke to the pickleball community the last couple of weeks to try and get some ideas of what we should use that spot for. And I agree, Mayor, that by far the majority of people play pickleball. I called one of the tennis players to get their advice on this idea of going with just pickleball, because the two don't really work together. I've played tennis and I've played pickleball, and I noticed when I first went and played pickleball that I thought, well, if I was here to play tennis, I wouldn't want all these lines everywhere. But I spoke to one of the tennis players, and it seems from what I've been told, the reason tennis is played there is because it's the only place they can play tennis at night. It's not really the court, it's the location because of the lights. So if we could get lights at a different area, I know the school is looking at maybe starting pickleball there by the soccer fields. I was thinking, well, maybe long range we could work with getting and maybe helping them get lights put up at that particular court. There's two courts there where we only have the one for tennis at Frank Pate Park. And I was going to bring it up later and ask that we appoint a person on the committee that we formed last meeting and put someone on there that would represent pickleball and where they could work with that committee. I think the best approach is to let the committee that we formed, the Parks and Rec Committee, weigh in on this and get some ideas and reach out to both tennis and pickleball players and see if we can suffice everyone by maybe working on lights at another field and converting the existing court into pickleball.
Yeah, what we could do possibly is work with the school board and tell them if they will fix up one tennis court, we could provide the lighting, maybe co-op with them on something like that, and that would allow us to do the pickleball down there and tennis at Madison School Complex.
I believe that would work. Lighting is the only issue that, from the tennis people that I've spoke to.
Good.
Well, Mayor, let's not forget Peters Park too has perfectly good surface for, to restore that if we just put the fences back up. It'd be a lot easier to get lighting out there as well.
Oh yeah, in this whole scheme of talking about tennis and parks and where and what, I went and met with Mike and a person that will probably be one of the companies that puts a price in for resurfacing. We definitely rode over to Peters Park and looked at, they have the biggest area
three tennis courts
of all. Now what I told the representative and I told Mike was we have to have community input from the entire city of St. Joe. And the people that live closest to the park at Peters Park, we need to hear from those people. What would they like to have? And we're still moving forward with having it resurfaced, re-fenced, and possibly lit up at night. That may be a place for tennis. I don't know. I want it to work out where pickleball players are happy and they can play pickleball. Tennis players are happy and they can play tennis. And we focus on Peters Park and build that back to whatever the community would like us to do there.
And it's just striping. I mean, if it doesn't work out, you can move it back to tennis court stripes. I mean, it's not like we're making any structural changes to the.
Well, there's some major problems with the court at Peters Park. There's cracks there that just can't be filled. It may have to be a complete redo. But instead of spending the money just on tennis or pickleball, I'd like for the community to weigh in on what they would really like the city to do at that particular site.
And I think that's going to be important because I can think of several things that we can put there besides tennis, and it's going to be important that we get opinions from the people in that community to see what they would actually want there. Would they want something else there for the kids to do, or whatever? So that's what I believe is going to come down to, what the people want, and then let's get with the committee and find out, let them speak with some of the people. They go to the meeting or whatever and find out what we can really do to improve that area.
Okay, any more discussion on that? So go ahead, Jim, I interrupted you.
That's perfect, Mayor. That's what we wanted to start, the board to start thinking about it. We're still working on quotes. Hopefully we'll have you several for the next meeting, but the use is what we need your input from, so that's what.
Did you have anything else on Public Works?
Just to keep you updated on a couple other things, we also opened up bids on Friday for the city pier. So hopefully we'll get some bids in this time.
That we can afford.
That's all I
Right
have.
on. Okay, surface water, Mr. Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, on page 13 of the agenda, you have the bid totals for the membrane filter modules. This is a budgeted item. Due to its proven durability, we would like to recommend to the board we accept Evoqua's bid of $83,520. We will still come in under budget with this.
Any comments from the board?
Mayor, I'll just say I saw some of the pictures of the Cenomer membranes that we thought were going to be the magic bullet a couple years back, and they look terrible. I would agree with staff that the higher bid is the way to go on this one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve the bid for the vendor. How do you pronounce that, Larry?
Evoqua.
Evoqua. Okay, $83,520. Is there a second to that?
That's it.
Second by Commissioner Langston. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, aye? Opposed, same sign. Okay, we get going on that.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I
Okay.
have.
Kevin, you got anything?
Nothing new for the commission.
Okay.
If you guys have questions.
Questions for Kevin? Anyone? Wastewater? All right, we'll move on to Mr. Mike.
I've completed the October financials and I put those out. I think I emailed those out for your review. I'm still working FEMA issues and insurance, and everything seems to be moving along.
Okay. I didn't get an email, by the way.
Okay, maybe I forgot. I completed the October financials and I will email those out.
Okay.
How's that?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clay, City Engineer.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. In last week, we got, with Mr. Anderson's help, I told you I asked the big guns, and they got us a quote on the lights for the trail, and so that came in the last week, and we kind of briefly looked at it and talked about it, but anyhow, that was a good first step that will allow us to kind of move forward with that project. We can build a budget around whatever final decision on number of lights we come up with, but that was good. We've been waiting on that, so thank you, Mr. Anderson, for that help.
I think everybody got a copy of that. And were there any questions on that? What is the length of that trail, Clay?
It's about 2,000 feet, and so that's about every 75 feet. And so we just talking with Jim, myself, that may be too many. I mean, it feels a little.
I walked
too
it this
many.
morning, that was gonna
So what
lighten up the world.
Well, we had talked about maybe just cutting that in half, you know, that'd be every 150 feet or so. But we're open to whatever y'all want to do on that. So we just briefly discussed it.
Right, okay. Any questions, guys, on that?
Just so I'm clear, it's $6,885 up front
And
and
that would be-
$271 monthly in
Correct. And that would-
perpetuity.
the 6,800 would be covered by the grant.
Okay.
The rent would be what would come from y'all. And so you can see that, I mean, just, if you cut it in half, then the rent would go to 135 a month.
Do you guys, you want to direct Clay and Jim to go forward with reducing the number of lights on that?
What happens to the remaining grant money if we
It
cut
goes
it in
into
half?
goes into the trails and things in Cook
Okay,
Park. It goes
okay,
into
so
the
we
other
can just
elements.
divert it,
That's
still
right.
use
You
it.
don't lose it.
Okay.
Because it stays in your
Clay,
grant.
could we use that grant money to put a single solar panel on a pole that would do all those lights? Because, I mean, it's a commitment forever to the electric company if we don't. And if we bought a solar panel, it would be covered under the grant, is my question.
Yes, I think you can. That would be a.
Because LED
decision
doesn't use a lot of
you'll
power.
make, if you want to go solar or not. For what it's worth, my opinion is not very high for solar lights.
Okay.
They're not as bright.
Yeah.
They do two things. They either dim them so they'll run all night on battery, or they don't run all night on battery. And so my opinion is that people put in solar lights and they're just not happy with them because it's not bright like a street light's bright, you know? But that, I mean, that's my opinion. For what it's worth.
There's a big solar panel with a light on it about halfway down that trail, and with all the trees, I don't think it gets much sun to do it good.
But that would be, I mean, I think the grant will pay for that if you want to go solar.
Well, I think we've waited long enough on lighting that section of the trail. I'm ready to cut the lights in half, work out a deal, pay them $135 a month to light it, and let's get it going.
Okay, is that the pleasure of the board? Do we need a motion, Jim, for cutting it in half, or what would you like?
It would be great.
Okay, so there's a motion by Commissioner Hoffman.
I'll second
And a
that.
second by Commissioner Ashbrook to cut the number of lights on the walking path in half and work with Duke to get that done. Thank you. Oh, wait, any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0.
The contractor on the work at Jetty Park, on the road work, the parking lot down there is looking like December. I don't have a date in December, but I'll keep you posted as soon as I know. Those are the updates I had for you.
Okey-doke. Anything? Thank you, Clay. Appreciate it. Code enforcement, we got, well, we're getting that from Richie. Anytime you want to email on that. So, Mr. Matt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything on the agenda. If anyone has questions for me,
New officers working out?
excuse me.
They working out, the new officers?
So far, so good.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Charlotte?
No, sir, other than we just, every day or so, we have people calling wanting to be in the parade. Mr. Jim said he didn't know who would watch the parade, but looks like everybody wants to be in it, but we're thankful that people are interested in it. Bree has put something on the Facebook page or something about it. I think there's been a good bit of, if you say chat or on that, so
Great.
we're thankful for the
Good.
participation and the interest in.
Absolutely. Okay. Anybody else? We're down to citizens. Anybody in the audience like to speak to the board? Please raise your hand. Okay, come right up. Please state your name and sign in. Okay, thank you.
My name is Marquita Tompkins. I live at 321 Avenue A, Port St. John. I am here today as I have some specific concerns regarding Washington Gym. I heard that it was already kind of briefly mentioned, some of them anyway, earlier. As a resident of Northport St. Joe and the chair of the Disaster Preparedness Committee for the Northport St. Joe Project Area Coalition, I have been tasked with developing a community disaster preparedness plan for Northport St. Joe. As a component of this plan, the Washington Gym can be utilized as a distribution center and a post-storm shelter should we have another storm that greatly affects our community. This has proven to be beneficial with Hurricane Michael, as individuals were no longer having to be bused to a different side of town for essential items that with already a limited amount of fuel available. The purpose of this plan is to make the Northport St. Joe community as self-sufficient as possible during a time when city and county services and resources may be restricted and or limited. The disaster preparedness plan is in line with the guidelines of the plan of Gulf County and has been reviewed, approved, commended, and a copy is on file with the Gulf County Office of Emergency Management. After speaking with Marshall Nelson, Washington Gym is already identified as a building to be utilized in the event of a disaster. While working on this plan, I have been supported and in contact with both Commissioner Langston as well as Commissioner Quinn, and I have voiced concerns with the repairs and modifications needed to enhance that facility so that it can be utilized. With these repairs, the effectiveness of the facility can be maximized. After a conference call on July 1 with both aforementioned commissioners, they were in agreement that this was a necessity. I have provided for your review a memo to the president of the Northport St. Joe Project Area Coalition, recapping the repairs and modifications needed for this facility. We cannot, in good faith, ask that someone seeking refuge from a storm be in a building that has still windows boarded up from the previous storm. With that being said, I also noticed that Washington Gym has been specifically listed in the budget for the city, and I do have a couple of questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
What specific repairs or modifications are being considered for the gym with the funds that are allocated?
I think we're gonna start with the lighting, and I talked with both Mike and Jim. We're gonna start with the lighting, then we'll start with the windows. Eventually we'll work on the bathrooms, which we talked. I think we talked. Commissioners talked about it before about adding the shower, which the shower was already there, enhancing that. So we're moving forward in some of these things, and I think if we get the windows done, I think that'll have a lot to do with the AC, you know, because the air is not staying in like it should. So we're definitely moving forward, trying to move forward, and I think eventually we'll get there, hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, do we have an idea as to when the windows will be done?
I spoke with Mike about it, and we're working on it. We don't have a timeline right now, but we definitely are looking into it.
Also, I think there's a group working on getting the Washington Gym listed as a National Historic Register. Is that right, Ms. Charlotte? Is that what we were trying to do, so we could go to the Historical Grant Review Committee in the state and next year and hopefully get a grant as a centennial did
Are
this
they going
year.
to resubmit it because the one that was previously submitted did not get approved?
Well, no, you would need to, like they said, you need to get it classified as a historic building
Right.
before they're going to consider it, because that's step one, getting that done. So that'll be a big help.
Yeah, that grant program that Commissioner Quinn applied for the state, it just didn't rank as high because it wasn't on a registry. It wasn't recognized as a historic building. So there's two different tasks. One is to try to get it on the registry, and that'll score it higher for grants.
Okay, one more question. I did submit a memo, the memo that I submitted, if you could consider that as a request or look at that in consideration of the repairs to be done at Washington Gym. And also, how can I be updated, or how can we all be updated on the status of the request and just follow the progress that's being made?
Come to the meetings for sure, or talk to Mr. Anderson. I think it looks like to me all of these bullet points on this memorandum were already being considered according to Commissioner Langston, so it's just a matter of funds and matter of time.
Okay, so just follow up with Mr. Anderson and check.
Yeah, our Commissioner Langston, he stays on top of it really well. So, thank you, ma'am.
Well, if I may, I'd like to add one thing. I was reading over the packet of available grants that we were supplied with, and there were several grants that, in my opinion, look like it might suffice in the repairs we're discussing. So I would like Jim to spend some time and let's focus on those grants and talk to the grant writer. And if they agree with the way that I read it, there may be some funding out there through a grant or multiple grants. Let's get the funding, and then I think we're all in agreement that the gym and the park there in particular is going to move up on the scale of priorities for the city. And if we get the funding through a grant, you'll see things happen much quicker. So
That makes sense.
that's our plan. Is to let's get our grant writers involved and see if we can find some funding to focus. The bathrooms there are deplorable. I've been there, and we're going to get that changed.
Okay, is Peters Park right behind the gym, is that considered a city park?
Yes.
Is there a reason why it's not on the website listed as a city park?
Don't know.
Because it's not listed as a city park.
Because it was maintained by the county and Mr. Peters' work crew, and at that time, they put in all of those, the county put all of those facilities into that. That's why it wasn't listed, because the county at that time maintained it and put money into that section of it. That's my understanding when I was the city's recreation director.
Well, let's just put it on our website too, Jim.
And I'll make one more comment too, on these grant proposals. If we show your plan, your emergency preparedness plan that's been signed off on by emergency management, and if that's submitted with the grant proposals, the chances of getting funded are probably higher. If we need this to be a facility that'll handle, as a storm shelter or distribution point, that may put a fire under some of the grant.
Well, I came prepared. I brought you a copy. Who do I give it to?
Good deal. Thank you.
TCB.
All right. Good comments. Next. Mr. Marvin?
Mr. Marvin.
Yeah, Marvelous Marvin.
You did wonderful.
All right, greeting to each one of you all. I just want to make a basic announcement, and that is on the 7th of December at Permanent Baptist Missionary Baptist Church on Avenue D in Port St. Joe, there is going to be a financial workshop that the Pike is sponsoring. We got a financial advisor, Ms. Tina Renee out of Panama City. She can be coming to the city to help anyone who having some financial difficulty with their finances, poor credit. And we know with housing coming in and trying to qualify to get a mortgage and stuff, we got to have good credit. She's an expert in that field, and I just want to let you all know that we get the word out that she can be coming in and giving a free workshop on finance, how to get information on your credit report removed. She has strategy that will help our citizens clean up their credit report, how to secure a mortgage. She come out of the mortgage field, so she can help those who want to try to procure a mortgage in the very near future. As the houses being built in our city, that workshop will be available to the citizen, not just Port St. Joe, but to the citizen of Port St. Joe to attend that workshop.
Marvin, can you get that information to Miss Charlotte, and maybe we can get it on the Facebook page?
Yes, sir.
And then that way it'll be out there from our end as well as your end.
Yes, sir. We will definitely do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and but that's all I got. Yes, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Tan Smiler is speaking as a concerned citizen. I just have one or two questions. That I would like today. First of all, I'd just like to ask, you're talking about the Peters Park while we're doing it, just make sure, me and you, Mr. Rex, we spoke about this about 6 years ago. You know we don't have a bathroom, right? Right. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure that be put on the agenda. Definitely. I want to ask a question about the Paces Foundation with the, I'm hearing rumors about 25 apartments that they want to bring in. I was told that we denied that opportunity.
No, that's not true. We asked them to do certain things before, you know, we would consider it, and we haven't gotten any input or feedback from them.
Can I ask, like, what certain things that was proposed to them? One of the main items was another entrance to the facility. Okay. Now, I want to, Mr. Rex, I no disrespect to no one, but I live about 100 yards from that place over there. Right. Now, I'm going on what Tan Smiler see, not what somebody told me. I don't see an increase in traffic the way people, I don't see that. I mean, I talked to several people who live in the area. I talked to Mr. Robert James Thomas. I spoke to Mr. Davis Chambers. Reason I'm here speaking, we need the 25 apartments. Okay, we need them. And I understand if we got things we need to work on before we get them put in. But as a concerned citizen, we need those apartments. And to start out with a 4-to-1 vote, that's enough. That's saying we don't want it. And that's not, I mean, right now, guys, not trying to be funny, those last apartments, I pushed to help get them in there. And I come this close, October 10th, 2018. I come this close from having to fill out an application to be out there. So what I'm saying is, I really wish, before we tell them no, I don't like no mean no. My mom always said, son, when I tell you no, no mean no, don't ask no more. I would love to see the table open back up, that we can sit at the table, because I don't know about you guys, but I lost everything I had in 2018. This close. If I want to have a nephew to come up to me and say, Smiley, you don't have to go there, you can come stay with me, I would have been filling out an application somewhere I never thought I would have been.
Jim, what was some of the other concerns we asked them about, and I don't think we voted not to allow them. I think the vote was to.
I didn't vote to disallow them in any way. I voted that the drawing that was presented didn't have enough room, one, for a fire department truck to enter and exit safely. So we talked about expanding the parking area. And then we had a lot of discussion about the need or possible need for another entrance and exit.
No disrespect. I could drive in the truck, got wheels through that parking lot.
Well, I took that information from the fire chief. And the
I'm just saying, I look him in the face and tell him, because what I'm saying is, I live over there. And I'm looking with my own eyes, I'm seeing things, and I'm hearing certain things, and I'm seeing different from what I'm hearing. We need the apartments.
What?
I don't know about another entry. I don't understand, because I don't see the traffic over there.
Can I say something? I see the traffic.
I don't see it. Okay.
I know over there too, and I see it. And also, it wasn't just about the apartment. It's about the policies and procedures they had. If, okay, you in this, okay, you don't have any felons or anything. But what if somebody that hadn't got in trouble in 5 years, and they doing the right thing, and they needed somewhere to stay, and they put an application in, they denied it because they got a felony.
Okay.
That's one
Now,
of the reasons.
So you
finished?
That's one of the reasons.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
when the process with those apartments was put there, we had a table set up that we was meeting every month. Now, this is not what somebody telling me. This is what Tan Smiley know. We met every month. Now, when I got put out the chair from being a commissioner, they had no more monthly meetings. They talked about it. We didn't have nobody sitting at the table to say, we need this, we need that. That wasn't going on. Now, I don't, when I spoke to the guy, there's a rule saying, see, St. Joe used this rule for many years, saying if you got a felony, they couldn't give you a job. They got a felony, you can't. That's not true. That's not true. And if you look into it, you will find out that they cannot hold you back from living out there without a felony.
Dan, here's the bottom line to the whole situation is PACES needs to come back to us with their plans and requests for a development order. And so our building department can review it, the commission can review it, and then we can go forward or ask them to do things that they need to do to satisfy.
Well, I was just told that they was told no because it was a 4-1 vote. And I know no mean just, no mean no because, I mean, I understand what Mr. Langston said and I'm not going to dispute it. But I would love for him and me to stand there and watch the vehicles coming down the street.
Yeah.
They're not there. It's a resident sitting in here right now because he stayed right in front of the place. And he told me he don't even realize the place over there sometimes. So we'll back to the main issue of hand.
We need
the little rules, in other words, the rules and stuff that we're speaking about. I can understand. I ain't got no problem with negotiating. I can sit to the table and negotiate with anybody. But let's not tell them no because we need their partners.
We appreciate that comments and I hope they'll come back to us and we move forward.
Well, they will. Actually, I'm gonna be honest with you. They will be back before you guys. We're talking about $4.5 million. And the little issues that you're talking about now, we can fix that to get the 4.5 to put in a neighborhood, that is considered blighted. Okay? That's help picking up the property of the neighborhood.
We hope we can work together to get that done.
Well, I hope that we can work together because it seems like when it comes down to doing work over there, it gets slow. I hear you talking about the bathroom and Ms. Rex, man, you spoke about that 6 years ago. We rolled out there and look.
Okay. Let's move forward. We're gonna work on all that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Any other citizens? Anyone? Okay. Discussion items by commissioners. Commissioner Hoffman.
The first thing that I have, I'd like to ask permission to appoint a person to represent the pickleball community on the committee that we developed.
FERDAP.
Yes. And I spoke to pickleball people today and they gave me a name of Rod Riegel, R-I-E-G-L-E. And he's the one that had sent us some drawings of the courts and stuff.
I met with Rod one time back when I was on commission out at Peters Park. We looked at those courts and tried to make it work.
I just think we should have a spokesperson for that committee. So that I would like to ask that he be put on the committee. He has assured me he's willing to serve.
That's fine with me. Mr. Attorney, we need a motion and a vote to add him to that committee.
Yes, sir, and I'm assuming Mr. Regal's indicated he's willing to accept the position.
He has, yes. And I told him that if we were in agreement that Mike McClure would probably reach out to him and get him caught up to speed as to when they would have a meeting.
Now, that's not on the agenda. Does anyone have a problem with this appointment? Okay. Is there a motion to appoint Rod Riegel to the FERDAP committee?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman made a motion. There a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ashbrook. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0. Okay.
The other things that I had listed, we have actually covered all but one. I know we discussed, I believe at our last meeting, working with the county in securing some TDC funding, the fifth penny funding. And I don't remember if we actually requested that our attorney begin some language for our interlocal agreement. If that wasn't the case, I would think, I would ask that we instruct the attorney to start on some kind of language that would, I'm not talking about numbers, but just concept, identifying, we're going to be working in the next couple of weeks and months, identifying what projects at Core Park we're going to focus on, the community parks that were talked about today. But I think we should start getting some language on paper, and then we can put amounts in there afterwards when we have specific ideas, and working with the other group for Bill Kennedy's crew. I just think we should start that now, and if we haven't started, I would be asking that you support that concept.
Commissioner Ashbrook, you're our representative on TDC. You have any comments on that?
What I was left with was any project that we have that relates to parks or tourism, just to present it.
Right, and with that, that's like every time we come up with a park or a project, we got to run back and ask Big Brother for more money. I'm not in favor of that in any way. I think we should have some kind of agreement. That way we can budget it. We would know yearly what kind of money are we expecting to spend on our parks, our rec areas. We could work with the new committee that we just formed to focus on things that the community they feel like is looking for. I'd like something that says yearly after one large donation, then yearly based on how much money is collected through the TDC. A lot of that fifth penny is actually city-based. Hotel rooms, bed and breakfast, all of those is money generated within the area of the city of St. Joe, and I think that we should be entitled to a portion of that. We should have it in writing and signed agreement.
I think, if I may, Mayor, if we could come up with that figure, what percentage of bed tax is collected within the city limits, and say we want that percentage to be at least earmarked. We still have to get their approval because they're beholden to statute on how it's spent. But we should have access to that pot based on a percentage of what we accrue here in town.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's fine. We can see at what type of money we're looking at. Maybe more money than we realize. I know that in the years past, the city has tried to actually get that information as to how much money it was, and we're not successful. So we may have to start there with asking once again how much money is collected within the city of St. Joe for the fifth penny. And then after maybe an initial payment of somewhere around $500,000, $750,000 for the first year, which was already committed to us for the sports complex, we just moved that over to parks and rec in general.
And I will make this comment too, there's always the option that you, as a city, can start your own TDC and you collect the bed tax dollars. You indicate how all that is spent. We looked into it about 4 or 5 years ago. There just wasn't enough, but our room nights are about to double if the Marinas Hotel comes in. It may be feasible then if we can bring in $300,000 to $400,000 in bed tax that we do start our own, and we completely control how it's spent at that point.
Yeah.
Why don't we put that on the agenda for the next meeting? Give us time to digest it a little bit, talk to the attorney, see what your ideas with how much collected in the city, and try to work that as a percent.
That'll work. Yep.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Ashbrook.
I don't have anything today, Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Langston.
Yeah, I want to talk about the priorities in the gym. I think that as far as starting with the lights and everything, I think it's going pretty good. And I think everything's coming along pretty good. It's been a long time coming, but we're going to get things done. Secondly, I want to talk about, we really need your opinions on what you really want to do with the tennis court on at Washington Gym. You can give each commissioner a call, tell them what you would prefer there, and let's work on that as soon as possible. I think we can do something good back there, and I just want to make sure that it's something that everybody wants. And I also want to talk about it's a Jonathan Rouse second annual Thanksgiving dinner. It's going to be held Tuesday at the Washington Gym. It's in Karan Peters is doing it in remembrance of his brother Jonathan, and we passed away at a young age. He's going to have a Thanksgiving dinner. It's going to be Tuesday at Peters Park at 3:30, and it's free. Come and enjoy yourself, mingle, fellowship, and let's just have a good time in remembrance of Jonathan. And finally, I want to talk about the time that we're having these meetings. I would like to see it changed back to 12 o'clock.
Second.
I don't know how we move forward doing it. I think that the attendance have been basically the same. It's been the same people. I don't think it's really interfering with anybody too much. And I also, sometimes you have to look out for the people that work for you, for your staff. And when you have these meetings at 6 o'clock, they work until 5. They have to wait and come to the meetings at 6, and then maybe they don't get home to 8:30, you know. We have these meetings twice a month. Most of these entities have one meeting. So I feel like if we have them twice a month, if you can't make the first one, at least you can make the second one at 12. So I'm just gonna put it out there. If I have to, what do I have to do to put it back on the table for a vote?
I think just ask Jim to put it on the agenda, and I'd like to pull the minutes out from that meeting that we voted on, and I'm not sure that it was a permanent thing. It seemed like to me, I remember it was going to be on a trial basis, but I could be wrong, but still have it on the agenda so it'll all be noticed, and people can make comments if they'd like to.
And I want to say this also, it's just my opinion. Don't get mad at me. If you won't have anything to say about it, I'm sure that you'll be allowed to come up and speak upon it. But it's just my opinion, how I feel about it. And the rest of the commissioners, however they feel about it, I'm fine with it. I said it before. When we voted on it before, I said that if that's how they wanted it, if the vote was 3-2, 4-1, or whatever for it to be changed, I can't do nothing but to agree with it and move forward. But I just want to put it back on the agenda because I want to bring the vote back.
Very good. All right. What else you got, Commissioner?
That's it.
That it? Okay. All right, I've got several things. One thing I think we need to talk about are when the code enforcement letters went out a couple of weeks ago, several hundred, I think, and now we're getting a request for waivers. And from my knowledge, I don't think we have any rules in place to grant waivers for any of these code actions. So we need to have something in writing, whether they have any insurance issues, they're having legal issues, they're in litigation, or they're in court, mediation, arbitration, appraisal, you name it, whatever. But, or if someone has a building permit and having trouble with the contractors, there's numerous things, but I think we need to think about how we're going to grant waivers. I've got one, well, I've had several, matter of fact, several in writing that addressed to the city, may have been in you guys' boxes. I don't know if you got them in your box or not, but either way, something we need to have some concrete rules about. I don't know, I was on the board right after the storm. I don't know if there was a vote or was it case by case? Jim, can you help me on that? Was there's anything in writing?
The only waiver that I remember the board actually gave was a reference to temporary structures for folks that their primary residence, they were trying to put their house back together. That was given a temporary basis on that for 6 months, and if people are showing progress, we've extended those. As far as any waivers, that's the only waiver we have. With the list that went out to all the folks in town that were directly affected by the storm, what we're asking is tell us what your situation is. We're trying to work with people to try to figure out whether they're going to put their house back together or whether the structure needs to come down. So right now, we're compiling all that data, putting it into the database. That way we can track all these to find out exactly where they're at. But as far as waivers, anything additional beyond that would need to come back to this board, and then we would need to make a decision if that something needs to go to the special master or not. But right now, we're just trying to compile all the data to put these people into which category they fall in. Did somebody do work without permits? They need to go to the building department. Was it somebody that fell on the FEMA substantial damage list that makes sure that they have the proper requirements there? Or if it's just unlawful accumulation. So we're compiling all that, which Mr. Burkett has that for you to look at any point in time, and we're trying to get those down in a manageable form so they can come back to you for final decision if somebody did not follow those rules or needs additional review by the special master.
In the notice that goes out, it is what you just said in that letter that they can come back to the city and request those things, or were you assuming they know that? It needs to be in that letter. If it's not in the letter, it needs to be in there that they can do it, and so it won't just look like a giant hammer coming down on someone's head without any recourse. But I mean, there's a lot of situations around. You got churches, you got restaurants just on the highway right there off the top of my head that they're having issues that, to my knowledge, can't be torn down at the present time.
Right now, we're hoping that we get as much voluntary compliance as we can, but once beyond any action beyond that, you'll have to come before this board to try to set up special master hearings.
So my question is, does this board want to set up a small group of rules to grant waivers, or is that strictly a code issue because of city ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I think we can run into some issues setting up a special set of rules. What I would suggest is those that are unresponsive or non-compliant or who haven't satisfied Mr. Anderson as to the progress they're making or trying to make, that they be presented to the code enforcement officer. And if they have any mitigating facts to present, they can, and if the city agrees with them, they can, and then the code officer or code enforcement special magistrate can take that into consideration in his ruling, because ultimately we want to make sure that we have the burden since we're affecting somebody's real property. So we want to make sure that we follow the statute to a T, because at some point we may want to take some action to abate a nuisance. And if we are setting up special rules that aren't in the ordinances, that aren't going before the code enforcement officer or special magistrate, we could get in a sticky situation where we're going to have a hard time. So my suggestion is that the city work with those who appear to be making forward progress. Those that they're not sure about or are not, let's bring it before the special magistrate. And if the city's satisfied, the city can certainly make a recommendation to that special magistrate that the individual be given more time, more leniency, or what have you.
Very good. Thank you. That's good advice. We'll just go with that now.
Yes.
Mayor, I do have a comment too, and I think, codes versus ordinance, building codes, if you have a code violation, it's usually health, safety, or aesthetic. I don't have a problem with waivers on aesthetic things. If they can't cut their grass in enough time, we can always grant a waiver. But if there's safety involved, or public health risk, I think that you'd be putting yourself kind of at liability if you say, well, you can have a waiver on that, and then what if somebody got injured because of it?
Right.
Did maybe the answer is, rather than clean it up and make it safer, mitigate that risk by saying you've got to put a fence around the house that's about to fall down and say no injury.
Yeah.
Maybe something to that effect, rather than just say don't worry about it for a while. But
I think the attorney said it best, so we just need to stick with what we've got on the books. Okay, you had a comment?
Yeah, I got one thing. I want to talk about the bears that's in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
it's just getting ridiculous now. I mean, then when you call them and talk to them, this is what they stuck on my door. How to avoid bears. I'm living in my home. Yeah. And they're telling me this. Avoid attracting bears. So you want my garbage, pet food, barbecue grills, anything that smells like food, that attract bears. We know that. Don't leave your garbage cans outside. Where I'm supposed to put it if I don't have a garage, you know, in my house? Yeah. Store trash and recyclables in barrel-resistant containers. Okay, they charge you for the containers, extra money for the containers. Okay, put them in a secure area for morning pickup. We only get pickup once a week. That's, you know, all right. And I'm gonna make the long story short. Okay, if you see a bear, I'm gonna naturally run. So they tell me on this, tell me to remain calm. Do not run or play dead. Back away slowly and speak calm in an assertive voice. Are you serious? Okay. Make sure that you're in a safe area and that the bear has an escape route. Then make noise to scare the bear away. Really? So what I'm saying is that we need to really try to concentrate on doing something with the bear. I know they can trap them and put them in other areas, but it's getting. I just don't want them to hurt anybody. I don't want anybody to get hurt. Our kids going to the bus stop, you know, and you're walking outside and you can run into one. You know, it's something that we need to try to do about these animals.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up too, Commissioner. Jim and I were working last week. We talked about the same thing. We talked about a letter to FWC, and then we turned it over to our resident FWC expert, Commissioner Hoffman. So, Commissioner Hoffman, would you tell us what you
Well, I had the
did last
opportunity
week?
the day after the mayor had spoke to me about the idea of writing the letter, which I still support. I was having a face-to-face meeting with the chief of law enforcement of FWC with my other role with the union boss. So I spoke to Rep Boyd, who's number 2 in the law enforcement group, and we had a very candid conversation about the problems with the bears in St. Joe. I had an issue when I was informed that 3 households were written letters of non-compliance, and I explained to Chief Boyd that was unacceptable, that the city of St. Joe would not put the burden on our citizens to lock the garbage cans. I explained to him also that the new garbage carrier uses a one-man operation. So there's nobody there on that truck to get off and unlock the garbage can. And we're not going to ask our citizens to go out there and unlock the garbage can at 5 and 6 in the morning. I think that if FWC wants that done, then they should assign their biologists to come and unlock the garbage cans. But we're not going to do it. So we had a conversation. I can tell you that after 30 years in the law enforcement side of FWC, FWC agrees with what we're saying, the law enforcement side. Then you have 2 other sides. You have the fisheries department, they're not in this game, and then you have the biologists. The biologists are the ones that are pushing back. They're the ones that want to put the burden on us. They're the ones that had someone hang that on your door that, you know, takes the responsibility away. So I'm sure there's some in-agency struggle, but I did pass along our concerns, so we'll see, and I still support sending the letter when it's complete.
We'll work on that, and just let everybody know we're aware of it. We're doing everything we can next to appointing the police to start shooting on sight. But anyway, we'll hopefully it'll come along. Okay, let's see what else I had. Yes.
They don't have nothing you can put on your garbage like the discarded bear from moving mess with?
Bleach?
I've been pouring bleach in mine.
Yeah.
I've worked 3 weeks in a row.
Shot of bleach.
You doing what?
Pouring bleach on top of mine when I put it out by the road.
Okay.
I don't know if that's illegal or not, but
Well,
I'm not doing it to harm the bear.
yeah. Well, it used to be a felony, but now it's a misdemeanor, Chief, so don't worry about it too much.
It's for cleaning the top of the trash can.
Yeah, clean the can.
Okay, I wanted to thank the Lighthouse Lighting Group that lit the lighthouse for their contribution of buying new Christmas decorations. You'll see some snowflakes on the light poles in town. They had a volunteer group and pulled some money out of their pocket and got some donations and bought some new decorations for us. So I want to thank them for doing that. Public Works getting them up quite well. Miss Nancy mentioned the Thanksgiving Day dinner. They pulled that together fairly quickly, and I want to applaud them for doing that too. We have a lot to be thankful for in this city, and especially all the volunteers and folks pulling together. So thank you for that. The other thing is I talked to Mike and Jim last week. We have, this is my 11th year on the board. To my knowledge, we've paved maybe one road in the city in 11 years. I think we've been neglecting our roads for a long time. And I asked Mike to talk to our rate consultant to see how we could find some money to at least pave one road a year, maybe a street. Maybe it'd run from just a short, you know, if we come up with $250,000 a year, we can do some good in this city and get these roads paved that it's our fault for neglecting them, but so we've got to start doing something. So we're looking for some creative ways to get some money. I don't really, sales tax is not a bad way to do it because everybody pays for it that way, but that has to go through the county and then it has to be county-wide, so I'm not sure that would be something we could pull off. But I want to let you know we're working on it, and if we come up with something, I'll report it to you. And that's all I have. Just wish everybody a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Again, we're thankful for all our folks in the city and what everybody does. So let's keep working together and we'll get it done. Motion to adjourn.